Well, there's always been rivalry between the U.S. and Canada, and it appears our neighbors to the north are now edging out the U.S. in an important social trend. For more on this, let's cross to CCTV's Kristiaan, who's in Toronto. Kristiaan, what are we talking about?
Hi, Michelle. Well, mixed fortunes, really, for Canadians. I'll come to that bit of research that you pointed to in a second. Firstly, cost of living is going up here, it seems, especially when it comes to filling the car with gas and keeping our homes warm. And as you know, it's not an easy task in the winter up here in chilly Canada. Consumer Prices Index, that is inflation to most of us, went up by 2.3% in May compared to a year ago. That means that most items that we buy have gone up by more than 2%. In 12 months, and that follows a similar rise in April of 2%. What's the culprit in that rise? Gasoline's gone up by 6.3%, the cost of natural gas has gone up by 21.3%, and electricity up by 7%. That's a big concern for Canadians who live very far apart, rely on their cars, and use a lot of energy to keep the home warm. So this is likely to squeeze income and quality of life for many Canadians. And it's ironic because just a couple of weeks ago, there was some research that came out, it was published in the New York Times, which suggested that the Canadian middle class is now the most affluent, the best off in the world, surpassing even the American middle class. Various reasons for that: stagnant earnings in the US, universal health care here in Canada, and better social mobility, according to the New York Times, is why it's now better to be part of the Canadian middle class than the American one. Now, there's a lot of skeptics regarding this research, so to find out if there was any truth into it, I spoke to one man, an immigrant, originally from Peru, who has tried to make a life for himself both here and in the US. So I wanted to know whether the grass really was greener up here.
When Renzo Alonso turned 18, he left Lima in Peru to embark on a new life in the so-called land of opportunity, the United States.
I just found that there was more opportunity there. I don't really like the way Peru was going at the moment, and the laws, the economy. I just wanted more for myself, so I decided I had the opportunity to go there, so I decided to go.
But he soon hit a wall. The cost of an American education put a university degree out of reach. His hopes of making a comfortable living began to slip away.
The poor in the States are going to stay poor, and the people that have backing and money are going to have more money. So me coming there as a new person, as an immigrant, without family, I was with the poor.
After 8 years, Renzo gave up on his American dream.
I don't doubt that it works for some people, but I realize that for the great majority, it doesn't. The government really is not there to help out people that are starting out.
He moved to Canada, and according to a report published by the New York Times, Renzo may have made the right decision.
After-tax middle-class incomes in Canada have risen by almost 20% since the year 2000, putting them ahead of those in the US. But does that translate into better quality of life?
According to some academics, Canadians are in general happier than Americans thanks to cheaper education, universal health care, and less income inequality.
In the United States, the poor are much less happy than the rich. In Canada and in the Scandinavian countries, that's not so much the case. If society is not properly investing in the human capital and it's young, then that's actually a huge inefficiency economically, but it means that you don't have the ability to move out of whatever position you were born in. It's less of a meritocracy or less of an insurance system.
Social mobility and disposable income in Canada may now outshine America's, but it is a country heavily dependent on energy exports. And along with alarming household debt levels, Canada's economy is, according to some, far from perfect.
Canadians should be very careful with feeling too good about a result like this, because I think we have big disruptions in the economy coming.
But for now, at least, the Canadian middle class appear to be in an enviable position. Those in search of the so-called American dream may have a better chance of finding it in Canada.
Now, it's worth mentioning, Michelle, that the picture does vary across Canada. And in fact, that professor from McGill that you saw there actually said if Quebec was its own country, it would be the second happiest country in the world after Denmark. So you're not guaranteed necessarily a better way of life in Canada, and there are concerns here with regards to house prices, over-reliance on credit. and the cost of living as well. So it's good news, but with inflation for energy prices creeping up, not such good news for Canadians today.